the very large public investment that went into building those parks. So that's one thing. The second thing is that you heard early in the meeting several small business owners on International Boulevard spoke about their fear of the impacts of the BRT, the bus rapid transit, and what it's going to do to their business based on loss of parking spaces and no loading zones and what have you that they are worried about. So the city staff has come forth with quite an extensive plan and actually quite a lot of money. I think like over $6 million. Oops, I went over my 4 minutes. I'm going to have to come back to myself here. Anyway, there's no money for relocation or for any kind of compensation for businesses that go out of business as a result of that. So I'll come back to that later, and I will now call on the mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to update for everybody. Looks like we got the Kilswitch bill out of committee and we'll go to the full floor next week. So that was the last committee, and we think we're going to win next week. So thank you, everyone. If the Kilswitch goes into these cell phones, it should make everybody safer. They already have shown some data that the apples which voluntarily put it in are now being stolen at a lower rate than my Samsung. So I just want to make a couple of general comments. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's been coming out to the hearing. Based on the hearing, we worked really hard with the staff and with council members to try to make the changes in it that reflected some of the tweaking. And so I'd like to talk, generally, I think, as Mr. Cobb said, if we remember back to way back in January when we made projections, our revenues are much higher than we had projected last year. That enables us to add back things, and that's what we're doing. We're still adding back. I want to remind the people at home that we laid off about 1,000 workers since the recession began, and we've now restored maybe about 400 positions. Probably a couple hundred of the redevelopment ones will never have the funding to get back quickly as the city grows and the economy grows, and maybe we'll get some of those back. And I really feel that because people forget that the blight and the littering, a lot of that was paid for from redevelopment, so that there's going to have to be probably some shift in priorities if we're going to particularly start doing the illegal dumping and the littering onto the general fund. And so I think that's a good thing for the 2-year budget to look at what our priorities are as the economy grows and we start adding people back. One of the easiest things for me to do, and I won't tell my library stories, as the daughter of a legal immigrant, not illegal, but an uneducated immigrant mom, I was lucky enough to grow up during summers in my hometown within a block of the public library, and I spent most of my time there. So deep in my heart, and it's amazing how the library's changed. So, some of you know, I was in Washington with the Maker Fair at the White House, and Oakland is going to try to turn our 2 library into a Maker workshop, and we're really hopeful that we'll get some federal grants to do that and to keep the libraries on the cutting edge. A decade ago when I became a council member, we wouldn't think that we'd be feeding kids out of the library, and it'd be such a critical part of keeping kids healthy, and then sneakily bringing them in for the summer reading program at the same time. But we've changed the way we operate. We've changed the role we play in the community. It still is a major place for the internet, and we will be continuing to grow the library. So not only do we have to maintain what was, but we have to keep up with the times of what the library will be in the next century. So $500,000 is not enough, and hopefully the economy will grow, and we'll put a larger part of our growing economy into the library for the next 2-year budget. I wanted to make a note because Mr. Call asked us to try to restore the money for the homeless and food program, and when we talked to staff, they felt that there'll be enough overage that we didn't have to make not overage, but what will be left over at the end of the year, that we can put that into the program. Should that not be the case when we close the books in October, we will come back for a small general fund modification, but we'll make sure that it does get funded. issue with the merchants, first of all, and then I want to make a comment on the land sales. The land sales, most of the land that we own now is part of the redevelopment, and we will have to sell that and share the proceeds with other agencies. It will be one-time money. There are some pieces of land that we bought specifically for affordable housing, so I'm hoping that will continue to go for that purpose. And when you leave that all alone, you take all of those, there's a very few unused lots, and I have forgotten about this one, where the city owns them, and we don't have to disperse the revenues, and we can use them for what we want, or we can sell them, but it's not a lot. I think Donna and Ham and I estimated that it's like a couple $1 million worth of land. We'll be happy to bring back that report and look at that as we look at all, now that the state has approved our ROCs, we'll bring back a plan for all of the land back to the city council. In terms of the merchants, quickly, there will be some money to work with the merchants on parking in response to Councilwoman Kaplan's issue. We've taken $1 million, when you approve this budget, $1 million out of the CDBG for helping the merchants, but there's not a lot of other sources after that. Both she and I probably, through being on the two transportation agencies, will probably try to get more money from MTC and the county transportation committee. But it's going to be very different from merchant to merchant. I think Mr. Guy has taken the most time to go with this block by block. And you'll get reports by the end of July on the parking issue, and we think we actually have that pretty under control, and there'll be less disbursement than we think. But there may be opportunities maybe to build some parking lots, and we could go to MCC or maybe the county to get funding for parking lots in neighborhoods where there is some impact, but it's less than originally looked at. The issue of whether how it long-term affects merchants is going to be much more difficult, and it's going to be merchant by merchant. So some groups have 300, our staff has it more down to 30, and so we'll look at that, but finding that money will be the most difficult. Lastly, I just want to talk about the reserve. So how we funded the library is that originally we had proposed, we all know that the city has about 4 or 5 reserves right now. So the one that we usually talk about is the general purpose reserve, the 7.5% required by our rules, the one that Mr. Gardner had to dip in after the earthquake too. These are reserves we very rarely use.